All right, so this is the starter motor that I replaced. Full disclosure, I've already had this apart, but since it's going in the trash anyway, don't have to take it apart again. Same case of the weeble wobbles on the fastener there. All right, nice long bolts. All right, so this one, different arrangement. The brushes hit the commutator going this way. I'm not sure what the advantages and disadvantages of that would be. I suppose you could have a more compact overall assembly because you're not taking up as much space and have more windings in there. So, because you don't have as much space taken up for the brushes. I mean, in this case, I'm not really sure that it makes that big of a difference. All right, so you can see this guy has been around the water a little bit. Good and proper corroded. In the back here, we've actually got, I think that's just a bushing again. Yeah, it's not a bearing, just a bushing. And the failure here, I don't know if you can see it. Come on. Come on. There's a crack in the brush holder. And as you can see, this brush doesn't really want to pop out. Which, I mean, this rear housing is, I believe it's plastic. I think this whole thing is just plastic. So, yeah, it's stuffed a bigger spring in there to try and help it, and get a little more life out of it since this part wasn't readily available. Braided copper wire connectors, nothing wrong with that. Just this housing is just plastic though. I mean, I think this whole thing is plastic. This might even be as well. We'll cut into it and see. So the outer part of this does appear to be metal. So it's just a molded plastic piece. Oh, no. That is some sort of metal. Huh. Well, it's some sort of resin or something. Well, it's something that can't conduct, obviously. Because if it did, it wouldn't work unless there's an insulator on the back side of this. We can check. Yeah, you can see actually it looks like the crack started down here where the bolt hole goes through. Come on. So I don't know if you can see this, but it looks like the crack started at the bolt hole and then just worked its way up through there. So it was under too much compression at the bolt hole there, which was the connector for the terminal. So there's that piece. Yeah, you can see too much tightness on the bolt and just cracked all the way through there. Brushes look like the standard graphite copper impregnated. They're a little too shiny just to be graphite. Nothing wrong with those, really. So these are the grounding brushes that go directly into the case. So those are your negative terminals. And these are your positives that come up through here. They're insulated by this guy. So this motor was only running basically on half the windings because we only had positive power on the one side. Well, I'm sorry, we had positive power on both sides, but it was only, no, that was a positive, yeah. So we only had positive on one side, so the thing was just not, only running 50%. Let's see, on this, all right, so on this guy, We've got the gear, right, for the starter. Got the helical part, so basically this spins faster than this can keep up. It's got a little bit of weight to it, so it's got some kind of rotational inertia, which causes it to run up and engage with the flywheel and kind of stall out on top of the this guy, on top of the shaft there. This guy's on top of there with a spring just to force it back down. In here we have another bushing with a single lip seal. Single lip? Yeah. Single lip seal in there. That's okay. Feels like some sort of, I don't know, feels like that zinc, like that die-cast zinc stuff. Little thrust washer there. Kind of another solid bearing part. Yeah, you can see, I mean, not a whole lot of wear on this thing. I mean, you can see where it's been chafing a little bit, but you can't feel either of those ledges with a fingernail. So those are pretty small wear-wise. I do like that this whole thing's dipped in epoxy all the way up to, you know, past the stake-ons. Just kind of a weird arrangement here with the brushes going back that way. But, and for balancing, looks like they just shoved epoxy in the cracks there for balancing. As you can see, there's different amounts in different spots, which is interesting. But yeah, there you go. All right, so here's the new motor. We'll pop it apart real quick and see if it's better than the old one. World's longest bolt there. Jeezless. And here you can see the classic problem with super long fasteners. You can see that that one is already tweaked. But, I mean, since all this stuff is cast together and it's all going to be in tension, not a big deal anyway. All right, so let's have a look. Well, some good, some bad. Obviously some spots of epoxy here for balancing. They did not bother to epoxy all the ends of the commutator. So that's not great. On the front here, it looks like it's just a bushing that's riding on, held in place by a circlip. I'm not going to bother to take that apart. These laminations are dipped, but not dipped all the way up to the commutator bar. The brushes, kind of hard to get in there. Ugh, magnets. 4 magnets in this one. I think the other one had 2. Something non-magnetic. Plastique. All right, so the brushings, the commutator bar actually goes in a different direction. Oh boy, I just knocked off a little piece of something down there. Okay. So it would appear that the bottom part of this case is just held in with some pins. So it might be the case that with just a little bit of coaxing, maybe not. A little bit of coaxing, we can get it apart, but I'm not going to try. So in the bottom there, there's just a brass or a bronze, kind of looks like copper, probably bronze bushing down there, oil light bushing. The brushes, not a whole lot of meat. You can see one of them kind of hanging out there. Braided copper connections, so that's good. Nice, big, beefy braided copper connections. These, the brush housings, are actually metal. So this one actually stands a fighting chance of lasting for some amount of time. Now, getting this back together is going to be a trick. Yeah. Oh boy. that guy's not going to stay put. This is going to be a real bitch to put back together. But yeah, so there's the newer motor. I guess the only thing I don't really like is that there's no epoxy here. Because I mean, this is where this thing's going to be sitting in that motor just vibrating all the time. That's where these wires are likely to break. But anywho, let's see if we can get her back together. Alright, I ended up having to pull the back end off just to have a fighting chance of getting it back together. So it appears to be copper impregnated graphite brushes. They're riding on a looks like circuit board, silicon plastic sheet there. Well, maybe not. If you look at it real closely, you can see like little weave marks. And that could also just be from whatever the fixture was that they punched that out of. So I'm kind of thinking that that's something a little more, I don't know what that would be. Doesn't really feel like nylon. Could be some sort of higher temp plastic. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I'll have to do some research on that one. But getting this these brushes to seat back on here is gonna be a biatch. Okay, only other thing we are going to do before we put her in service is probably just put a little dab of molybdenum grease on that gear there. Thanks for watching.